Hey, Kyle, you still haven't finished this at all?
My boss, Henry, threw a document at me while I was composing an email.
What? But you told me that this one needs to be completed first.
I was about to say something like that when my boss started to yell at me.
You're only just my subordinate, right? So everything that I say is absolute and right.
Unconvinced by what Henry was saying, I still picked up the document that was thrown to me. My boss seems to be in a bad mood today. My name is Kyle Johnson. I'm 29 years old and I work at an office. I really wanted to go to Spain, Madrid, because of a movie I saw a long time ago, so I traveled there when I was 20 years old. I saved up money by working at a short-term job and set out on a low-budget trip. I was what you'd call nowadays a backpacker. I was worried at first, but I met a lot of people there. After returning back to the US, I put my Spanish skills that I had cultivated in Madrid to good use and got a good job at a well-known company. However, I had a bad relationship with my boss and was subjected to his power harassment, and my mental health began to suffer, so I resigned. After 6 months of taking care of my mental health, I finally changed jobs in a different company. The CEO of my current company is actually a classmate of my father's. It is a small company, but they were looking for someone who could speak Spanish because they were going to be doing more business overseas. So my father introduced me to the company. When I had a job interview with the CEO, he seemed to really like me, and on his own initiative, I was hired then. However, what was waiting for me was a mean boss who'd harass me at work. His name was Henry. He was assigned to me, so he could teach me many things for the work I'm supposed to do. The CEO had praised Henry for his sales skills and his good-natured personality, so I was relieved at first. But I was actually exhausted from my first day at the company.
Kyle, come on, let's take a break together.
Saying that, Henry took me to the smoking area. I am not a smoker, but if my boss wants to go to the smoking place, I have no choice but to follow him. I was drinking coffee right next to Henry, who was smoking a cigarette. Then once we arrived in the smoking area, Henry's attitude changed drastically.
Hey, you! I heard that the CEO decided to hire you all on his own.
Henry says this as he blows the cigarette smoke right into my face. I coughed, because I really hate smoking, but Henry didn't care and continued to talk to me as he puffed the cigarette once again.
You see, age doesn't matter at all, okay? It won't change the fact that you are still my subordinate. You do know that, don't you?
Actually, Henry is 2 years younger than me. I think it would be difficult to deal with a subordinate who's younger than you, but Henry didn't care, and he was more than happy to order staffs who are older than him around, as long as Henry was their boss. When he is with other people, Henry is a very assertive and friendly young man, but as soon as he is alone with me, his attitude changes drastically. So, it makes me think that he really doesn't like me. And there are probably 2 reasons for that. First, the hiring decision was made at the discretion of the CEO. Henry, who thinks that the CEO likes him the best, feels that his position has been taken away from him because of me and my position. Another thing is that since I was hired because I can speak and write in Spanish, people around me often say I'm great. So Henry really doesn't like me about that, I guess. Like that, Henry is simple and easy to understand. Every time someone praises me, his sarcasm increases, and the amount of work he pushes me to do also increases. Well, to be honest, Henry is still better than my old boss. So I didn't think of complaining about Henry to anyone. About a month after I joined the company, I was approached by a woman in the office. Her name was Meredith, and she seemed to be a relative of the CEO. She was probably a little younger than me. She can also read and write some Spanish. We didn't talk much, but on the way home we saw each other in coincidence, and She was the one who approached me. Did Henry say anything to you? She starts out by saying that after we greeted each other. She heard Henry yelling at me in the smoking area a few days ago. Henry often takes it out on me when things don't go well, basically. But I was tired of being questioned by Meredith, so I just faked the whole thing. Oh, you're talking about that time when I made a mistake, huh? Meredith looked at me all concerned, but she did not ask me any more questions, probably because I wasn't too worried or depressed about it. At my previous workplace, I had gotten mentally and emotionally drained because of power harassment that I received from my previous boss. But after I left, I thought it was foolish to get mentally drained just because of human relationships. So when I changed jobs here, I decided to let the negativity not let it get to me and push any negativity away as much as possible, so I didn't worry too much about Henry. Meredith and I got to talk more since we rode on the same bus to go home, and the conversations with her flowed very smoothly. Since then, Meredith and I became friends little by little. Sometime later, while I was working at my desk, Henry, who had been out on a sales trip, returned and said to the employees in the office,
"This year's company trip will be to Spain, Madrid."
As Henry was saying this, the CEO came in. He said that since the company was making more profits this year compared to the other years, he decided that it'd be fine for all of us to go overseas for the first time as a company trip. The CEO then told Meredith and I to split the arrangements for flights and booking for hotels. So I told Meredith this, saying, "I know of a hotel, so I'll check if we can book that hotel." Then, on the day of the company trip, when I arrived at the airport, I saw that everyone had already arrived and gathered at the airport. As I was about to go to the location to meet up everybody, someone suddenly grabbed my arm. I turned around and saw Henry pulling my arm.
"Hey, are you going to the trip too?"
He says to me as he looks down on me. Huh? What, is there a problem? When I said that, Henry grinned and said,
"Here's your ticket,"
as he holds out my plane ticket. But when I tried to get the plane ticket from him, he tore it up and threw it away. I was standing in a place where it was hard for everyone who was at the place where we're all supposed to meet up to see what was actually going on. So no one would even know I was actually at the airport. I had been looking forward to this trip to Madrid. So I was about to complain, but Henry opened his mouth before I could.
"How could a newbie like you even come to the company trip with us? You should just go back to the company since you're supposed to handle taking phone calls from our clients."
Henry said that to me, gritting as he looked at me and the ticket he had torn up.
"You're annoying. You're being really cocky. You're a mid-career hire, yet you're always being praised. And on top of that, you're getting along so well with Meredith. I mean, what's with your deal, huh?"
Does Henry have some kind of grudge against me? I was dumbfounded by his elementary school level thought process, and Henry says,
"I'll tell the people that you're not participating because you have a fever,"
as he stomped off, leaving the tickets that were torn on the floor. I had come all the way to the airport, and it would have been a shame for me to just go back to the company. I love Madrid, and there are places I also want to go. So I decided to have my ticket reissued. I didn't want to be seated too close to Henry, so I used the miles I had been saving up when I was a backpacker to use them someday and changed my ticket to business class. Economy and business class have different entrances to get it onto the plane, and business class gets to leave first when it arrives in Madrid. So there was almost no chance of meeting up on the same flight. And many hours later, I received a call on my phone. When I answered, it was Henry on the other end.
"Hey, what's going on? We finally got to the hotel, and now the hotel manager here is saying that we all can't stay the night if you aren't there."
He yells at me as soon as I pick up the phone.
So you better explain the situation to the hotel manager yourself.
Henry's voice gets distant as he says this. I guess he is now handing the phone over to the hotel manager. And what I hear is Henry's voice and the hotel manager's nostalgic voice. If Kyle is not here, you all cannot stay with us. I hear the hotel manager explaining in English with a little bit of accent. It was the voice of the manager of the hotel who had taken well care of me when I was in Madrid. This hotel is one that is not in any travel magazines and is known only to those who knows. I was introduced to this hotel through a local acquaintance when I was a backpacker, and I liked it so much that I stayed there for many nights. This time I made the reservation and I am planning to stay there too. The manager of the hotel does not usually take group guests, but he gave me a special permission because I was introduced to the hotel. However, when Henry and my colleagues arrived, I was not there in the group. In foreign countries, you have to show your passport as an identification to stay at the hotel, and it is important to know who had booked the hotel rooms. As for the manager, I guess he refused the reservation since I wasn't there. Then again, Henry was yelling at the hotel staff, even though they couldn't understand a word he was saying, so maybe the hotel side considered him to be someone dangerous. And just then, I arrived at the hotel as well. One of my colleagues who was in front of the hotel saw me and was surprised.
Oh, Kyle, what's going on?
Then I heard a voice call out my name. Kyle! It was the hotel manager. I ran up to him and greeted him in Spanish. When the manager told me what had happened, it was exactly what I had expected. When the manager asked why I was not there, no one could answer because no one understood Spanish, and Henry started yelling at them in English. So the hotel manager repeatedly told him in broken English that he could not let them all stay if I was not actually there. Meredith could speak some Spanish, but I guess it was difficult for her to talk really fluently in a long conversation. And that was when Henry finally called me. Kyle, by the way, why are you here? Didn't you have a fever? I was wondering what to say when Meredith said that to me, but Henry flew in and began to verbally abuse me.
Can't you at least arrange a hotel properly? You're the reason we're stuck here. You really are useless, huh?
The other employees looked at Henry in surprise, since usually he'd act all kind and nice. I had kept my mouth shut until now, but I was indeed angry and made up my mind to expose Henry's true nature. Actually, I went to the airport in the morning, but just before getting to the place where we all were supposed to meet up, Henry came over to me and did this to me. I pulled out the ticket that Henry had ripped up from my pocket. Excuse me? Henry did that to you? Meredith says, but Henry began to yell at me.
Stop talking nonsense.
Then Meredith began to say something as if she remembered about something. Come to think of it, when I was handing out tickets in the morning, Henry, you took Kyle's ticket as well, right? You said that you'd take care of the cancellation with the airplane carrier since Kyle couldn't go. I'm not used to flying, so I left everything for Henry to handle it, but is that Kyle's ticket? Henry clammed up, so I quickly opened my mouth. Yeah, that's right. I was actually going to go to the meeting place, but I decided not to because I didn't want to ruin the fun atmosphere of everyone. But I wanted to come back to Madrid too. So I reissued the ticket and switched to business class. This is how I came to this hotel too. I explained as I hugged the hotel manager. Then the CEO, who was not at the scene, appeared. Meredith then said this angrily. CEO, you are late. Really, you have always been so carefree in moments like this. Indeed, the CEO is a man of his own pace, but no one could say anything. And since Meredith, a relative of the CEO, said so, everyone began to nod in agreement. Then Meredith explained the current situation to the CEO. So the CEO began to question Henry about it.
Henry, is this all true?
But to this question, Henry did not answer. So I played an audio on my phone. It was a conversation at the airport Henry and I had, before we all departed. When Henry said,
Are you going to go?
To me? I had a bad feeling about it, so I quickly activated the voice recorder on my phone in my hand. Since it was only an audio, I couldn't make out that he had ripped up the ticket, but Henry's harassment was being played over the audio, and the other employees whispered of some gossips. When the audio ends, Meredith says, "I saw Henry yelling at Kyle." And the other employees began to talk more and more. "Oh, me too."
I asked Kyle about it, and he said he just made a mistake.
Henry thought he was doing it where no one else was, but it would be impossible to hide everything in such a small office. Everyone testified little by little, and it was discovered that it was not my fault, but that Henry had been yelling at me because he was just being grumpy or moody. Henry turned pale but went against it and tried to defend for himself.
No, that really was just his mistake.
Hearing this, I just have had enough. Besides, I wanted to punish him somehow for this incident, so I quickly opened my mouth. "Well then, when did I ever make a mistake? I don't remember me making any mistakes, although you did force your mistakes onto me. Besides, I do a lot of work based in Spanish, so you can't point out any mistakes, since you don't understand to speak Spanish at all, right?" When I said this, Henry's face turned red. "Henry, you feel inferior about not being able to speak Spanish fluently, don't you? But that doesn't mean you can just bully me like that, you know? I'm the one who made the effort, so that's why I can speak and write Spanish fluently. So why don't you study, Henry, before you start bullying or making fun of other people?" To this, the other employees nodded. Then the CEO said,
Henry, Kyle is right. Besides, if what he says is true, you could be sued for power harassment. Did you really do that?
But Henry looked down and shook his head like a child. I was taken aback by Henry's attitude. Then Meredith interrupted. "I saw it happen several times. I had no idea that Henry would do something like that." I could hear the employees whispering and gossiping. Then the hotel manager came to tell us that the rooms were ready. The CEO then says,
"Since this is a company trip, let me think about what to do about this when we get back."
And to this I nodded. I then enjoyed Madrid for the first time in a long time. It was all so nostalgic and I was really happy. The other employees were also enjoying themselves to the fullest except for Henry. He had been holed up in his room and apparently hadn't come out. After what happened, it must have been hard for him to see everyone else. But I don't feel sorry for him because he hasn't apologized, and I haven't forgiven him at all. When it was time for us to check out from the hotel, Henry looked resentful at the employees, who looks happy with their stay in the hotel. Oh, and the hotel manager has something to say to Henry, so I translated it to him. "Henry, you smoked in your room, didn't you?" When I said that, Henry replies impatiently,
"Huh? So what?"
"I told you that smoking is not allowed in the hotel room."
"It's not like I was smoking outside, okay?"
Knowing that Henry was a heavy smoker, I had told him that smoking was not allowed in his room, just in case, and that he should smoke in the smoking area in the hotel. Nevertheless, he did not listen to me, and he just smoked in his room. And it seems he smoked quite a lot of them. The hotel here is a lot more stricter when it comes to smoking, you know. So the hotel is going to charge you a cleaning fee because of the stench in the room.
Huh?
Henry tried to refuse to the hotel manager, but CEO stopped him by saying,
"They have different rules here, so I think you better just pay for the fee."
And Henry paid the cleaning fee while he clicked his tongue in an irritated way. After all the advice that I gave him, he didn't listen, so isn't he the stupid one?
"It's all your fault,"
Henry tells me, but all I can do is sigh. What the heck did I do now? You don't even listen to other people, so it's your own fault, isn't it? And if you don't apologize for what you've done to me, I'll file a claim for power harassment. When I said this, Henry became silent, but in the end, he did not apologize until we all returned back to the US. It was a good thing that Henry looked uncomfortable on the flight home. After that, Henry apparently submitted a resignation letter. I would have forgiven him if he had apologized, but since there was no sign of him apologizing to me, I did what I said and filed a claim. Henry apparently lived with his parents, and so they brought him to my place to apologize. Henry was looking down at himself when he came to apologize. However, his father became furious and slapped Henry really hard. Apparently, Henry couldn't go against his father, so he finally apologized to me, saying,
"I'm sorry."
And after he said that, I took the compensation money. "You deserve what you get." I laughed as I said this, and Henry glared at me with a frustrated look on his face. And now with Henry gone, the atmosphere in the company returned to a friendly one. I heard a rumor that Henry had been kicked out of his parents' house because he couldn't find a new job, but that had nothing to do with me anymore. Since then, I have been enjoying my work. The manager of the hotel in Madrid also told me to come back to visit him again, so I think I'll go back there sometime. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. We look forward to seeing you again. Please subscribe to our channel.